Powerful Libyan General Khalifa Haftar says he's pulling out of the agreement, which aimed to create a unified government in the country. The deal was signed in 2015 by all Libyan political blocs to end their internal fighting. But in a televised speech, Haftar rejected outside authority over his forces. He's the head of the self-proclaimed Libyan National Army, a group that controls key oil ports and is supported by the Parliament of Tobruk. Now, the United Nations, which backs a separate government in Tripoli, says the agreement remains the only viable framework to end Libya's political crisis.
On the
17th of December 2017, the so-called political agreement expires, and the entities that emerged from that agreement will lose their legitimacy, as the agreement wasn't trusted to begin with. Today, Libyans feel they've run out of patience, and the stability they'd impatiently been waiting for and shed so much blood over is still far from being reached.
Well, for some analysis on this, let's speak to TRT Oubai Shahbandar, who's joining us live on set. Oubai, thank you so much for coming in. It's obviously a complicated situation in Libya. Before we get into the ramifications of Haftar's declaration today, how did we reach this point?
Well, General Haftar is such a central and pivotal figure to the ongoing saga in Libya. In order for us to really understand and unpack what's happening in that country today, in this very divided Libya, we have to understand the history of General Haftar. He is a former Gaddafi general who defected to the opposition, at one point worked for the CIA, and then became a key militia commander in eastern Libya. He views himself as a strongman who is capable of bringing peace and stability to the ongoing factional fighting in Libya. So there are many people on the ground in Libya believe that Haftar is positioning himself to eventually become the leader of Libya overall. Currently, his seat of power is in the west-eastern part, Benghazi, which is a key oil terminal export for Libya. He controls a very powerful militia, the Libyan National Army. He was fighting the Islamists there for years. Many view him as the only real solution to defeat extremists. Daesh had a stronghold at some point in the areas that he controls. And now, after his announcement today, it's clear that he's declared the United Nations led talks to unify Libya as being null and void. He'd said that these agreements are merely ink on paper. The elections are coming up next year. Many are now speculating that General Haftar is positioning himself to be in these elections, to run in these elections, and eventually, potentially, control the country as a whole.
I mean, so he's been able to take control of the eastern part of the country. How's he going to be viewed on the other side, the UN-backed government and the other parts of Libya?
Well, this is the second major takeaway from General Haftar's speech earlier today, is that by essentially declaring the UN-led talks null and void, he also declared the government in Tripoli, which is recognized by the international community as the legitimate government of Libya, as also being null and void. So here we have a conflict between a very powerful strongman in one part of the country against the recognized capital and government in the other part of the country, in Tripoli. The factional fighting is still ongoing in Libya. Haftar believes that he is the only man who's strong enough and powerful enough to bring the ongoing fighting to a halt. The problem is, would it be viewed as legitimate by the international community? How will the elections take place without international oversight? And will General Haftar recognize a democratic process in which he eventually may have to share power? These are a lot of questions that many are asking. Many Libyans at this point are just tired after years of factional fighting, after the overthrow of Gaddafi, and they just want to be able to live their lives in peace.
I mean, I'm assuming he's strategized that this declaration today is not going to turn the entire country fighting within itself again, and must have been able to see a way that he can carve out a position for himself. I mean, just how is it going to be viewed by the UN-backed government? And will they respect his decision here to make this declaration unilaterally?
Well, there lies the conflict of General Haftar's announcement today. He still has a very powerful faction behind him, a very powerful militia and army.
To wrest control from the other side?
Potentially. In fact, a few hundred of his followers in Tripoli attempted to hold a rally following his speech. They were chased out of the central square by the opposing faction and the Tripoli government. What everyone fears is that this could lead to a renewed round of fighting in the Libyan civil war between the Tripoli government and the Benghazi government. Clearly, no one wants to see that happening. The UN mission to Libya does not want to see that happening. That is a potential outcome, as it's very clear that General Haftar is not someone who is likely to share power in the long term.